Ladies and gentlemen, this witness has been previously sworn to testify truthfully. Ms. Anderson.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, Marie, we are going to call you by your preferred name and not provide any full name, but what I'd like you to do is just introduce yourself to the jury.
My name is Marie, and I know Mr. Horner as a special educator in Hazel ISD.
What did you do at Hazel ISD?
As I stated, I was a special educator. I became the special ed department head, and I worked with students in the learning lab, or what some districts call content mastery, and also shadowed some students in classrooms.
What is a learning lab or content mastery?
It's a place where students can come to get extra assistance, maybe have things read to them, or explain to them further.
And if you can pull the microphone just a little bit closer to you so we can make sure that everybody can hear you, okay? You a little nervous this morning?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Tap that microphone. Okay.
Is this your first time testifying?
I've testified before.
Anything like this, though?
No.
Okay. Marie, you mentioned content mastery and that kids can come there to get help. What kind of help would be provided in a content mastery setting?
They might get reading assistance. They might also have things broken down or explained to them on a more basic level. Sometimes help with vocabulary.
Can any student come to content mastery?
Actually, in Hazel ISD, any student could come to content. So we didn't just serve special education students. We also serve 504 students and general education students if they ask the teacher to come.
Generally speaking, how many students use the content mastery program while you were there?
That would be difficult to answer, I think. But, I mean, we had a large majority of students that used it, probably primarily 504 and special education students. But, I mean, on any given day, at any given hour, there could be 20-plus students in that classroom.
You've mentioned 504 a couple of times. Tell the jury what a 504 is.
504 would be things like dyslexia, ADHD, things that can fall under special education, but if a student achieves to a certain level, they may be ARTed out, which stands for admission review and dismissal. But the thing that I believe is powerful about 504 is it does not go away when a child graduates, whereas special education does.
Did Tanner Horner have a 504?
He did not have a 504. He was a special education student.
You mentioned that there could be upwards of 20 students in there. How many teachers would be available for those 20 students? What was the teacher-to-student ratio?
Typically, there might only be one teacher in the room, but we also had 2 to 3 paraprofessionals that were there to assist as well.
Were you ever working as an inclusion specialist while at Hazel ISD?
Yes, ma'am.
And what is an inclusion specialist?
That is someone who goes into the classroom to basically shadow the students. Oftentimes we would stay there while the lesson was given, but if they had an assignment to complete, it was at our discretion if we stayed in the classroom or if we actually took them to content mastery to complete that assignment.
What would you do for them in the classrooms?
Sometimes we were there just to help keep them on task, and at times the teacher might defer to us for us to give an explanation and help teach a lesson.
Tell me more about that. You said help explain the lesson or to even teach it. Why would a student need someone like you to teach the lesson that they have a teacher in the classroom that's already teaching it?
Because we don't all learn the same way. Sometimes we need something explained in a way that we need things broken down. And I saw that as a benefit, not just to the special education students, but to all the students.
When you were with Azle ISD, were you an inclusion specialist for Tanner?
That's going to be hard for me to answer because I'm trying to remember when inclusion started. And if I were, he would have been probably on the beginnings of that inclusion support.
Well, Marie, during your time with Azle ISD, did you work with Tanner?
I did.
And how did you come to know him?
Basically, he would come to content and we would be there to help assist. So, let's say he came in for a history lesson or a science lesson, we would sit down and and it wasn't typically just him, he probably came with a group and we would sit down with that group and maybe read some of the content again with them and then try to help them answer the questions that the teacher had sent for them to complete.
When you first met Tanner, what was your first impression of him?
He was a pleasant young man.
Did he ever talk to you about his home life?
Not a lot, but also remember I said I was the special education department head, so I probably attended, I can't swear to all, but the majority of his ARD meetings. And again, that's admission review and dismissal. So I got to know my students pretty well. So
How often would these ARD meetings take place?
at least once a year, but sometimes on occasion, maybe more than that.
When you have these ARD meetings, who attends?
The guardian is always invited, obviously, a parent and or guardian. There's always at least one special educator in the room that has them in class, as well as a CTE teacher, their career-oriented teacher had to attend, and then obviously regular education teachers would attend.
What is the purpose of the ARD meeting?
To review a student's accommodations, to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to meet their needs in the classroom.
When Tanner had his ARD meetings, do you recall who attended?
As I recall, I might have met Mom on one or two occasions, but typically it was his grandmother that attended.
And what were your impressions of his grandmother?
She's a very sweet lady.
Did his grandfather ever attend?
Yes.
And what was your impression of him?
Again, he was always pleasant.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, Maria, I'm going to hand you what has been marked as Defendant's Exhibit number 75. We'll just take a look at this for a moment.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, what do you recognize Defendant's Exhibit number 75 to be?
Well, it would appear to be his educational record and the districts that he attended throughout the time that he was in school, and it looks like he came to Azle in 6th grade.
The defense offers Defense Exhibit number 75, which has been on file the requisite amount of time and has been previously tendered to the state.
Look at what it is, what you're...
Mm-hmm.
We're good, Your Honor, no objection.
Okay, defendant 75 is admitted.
Now, Marie, have you seen these records before?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you review them in preparation for your testimony today?
Briefly, yes.
Now, Marie, when you were with Azle AISD, how did they code their special education classes?
Well, for a period of time, you were able to look at a transcript and tell the difference between a special ed class and a regular ed class. But then we kind of slid into a period of time where the state required that everything look more consistent. And so unless you were on the teacher side, you really couldn't tell the difference.
Can you tell the difference when you look at a transcript? Or I guess, let me ask it this way. Can you tell us whether Tanner Horner was in special education classes?
I'm going to tell you by looking at the transcript, it's very difficult to tell, but I know that he was, yes.
You mentioned that the school board didn't want to kind of draw attention to special ed. You want kind of consistency, I think was
It
the word.
wasn't the school board, it's TEA more than,
TEA.
yes.
Okay. With, why would TEA not want to make it obvious that a child was in special education?
Joe, I'll object. That calls for speculation.
Stay.
Based upon your training and experience with dealing with special education students, have you observed them being treated differently than mainstream students?
At times, yes.
In looking at Tanner's records there, are there any categorizations which may have indicated that he needed any sort of special services? And specifically, I'm asking, does it notate anywhere that he may have a learning disability or a neurodevelopmental disorder?
And these particular records that I have here, no ma'am.
And based upon your experience with Tanner, are you aware of any learning disability that he may have?
Yes, ma'am.
And were you aware that, or are you aware of any neurodevelopmental diagnosis that he may have?
Yes, ma'am.
And what is that diagnosis?
Well, I know he was a student he was classified as a student with a learning disability. I can't tell you the subject it was in, I just remember that. And I also know that he was considered on the autism spectrum.
To your knowledge, did anyone, without naming names, did anyone at the school perform an evaluation to make that determination?
Well, yes, ma'am. Otherwise, they couldn't be under that heading.
So in order to have that heading of autism or learning disabled, the school themselves would have had to have done an evaluation?
Yes, a diagnostician would have evaluated him, and probably an LSSP would have also evaluated him.
So somebody just couldn't come in there and say, hey, I'm autistic, or hi, I have a learning disability, put me in these classes?
No, doesn't happen that way.
It has a process?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
And if they don't meet the criteria, would they be allowed to be in those programs?
Judge, I'll object as to leading this witness.
Don't lead your witness. You may answer the question.
You may have to restate the question, I'm sorry.
In order to be in the program, would you have to have a diagnosis?
Yes.
With regards to other things that were within your knowledge related to Tanner, Were you aware of any, I guess, category or characterization or anything regarding emotional disturbance?
I do believe that that had been on his record before, but as I recall, it wasn't on his record when he was at the high school.
Why would something like that change?
Well, we put students in certain programs to hopefully teach them some coping skills so that they can be more integrated into the regular classroom. And so if they don't need to be in a certain setting, we follow least restrictive. So we allow them to, to maybe not be in a behavior classroom any longer, but to actually be in a more regular classroom.
What kind of behavior would get you placed in the category of having an emotional disturbance?
Oftentimes it was anger outburst and/or struggling with interacting with your peers.
And you said that you taught, that a student could be taught coping skills. What kind of coping skills are generally taught?
Well, obviously when they would be angry, once we could get them to a calm place, then we would, try to walk them through how could you have maybe handled this differently, or what might be a way to, arrive at a healthy decision. A lot of choices, we talked about choices a lot.
What does the fact that someone begins the school year, not me, Your Honor.
Not me either, and I don't know. Go ahead.
Anyway, so Marie, if someone began the school year with emotional disturbance noted in their records, and then at the end of the school year or at the beginning of the next school year, it is no longer noted, what does that tell you about what that student was able to do throughout the year?
Well, that would tell me that they must have learned some skills so that notation was allowed to be removed, but it also would tell me that they had an ARD meeting in order to remove that accommodation.
Now, Marie, you talked a little bit about content mastery and that you worked with Tanner in content mastery. Do you recall what classes he would have needed help in?
I believe he primarily used the lab for science and social studies because I'm pretty sure that he was in a more special ed setting for some of his core subjects due to them being subject to statewide assessment.
What do you mean statewide assessment?
Well, STAR testing now, but I believe he was probably under, can't remember. He could have been under tax instead of STAR.
Why would Tanner need help with this? Why would he need those content mastery classes?
Oftentimes they would read rather quickly and not necessarily glean from the written information the content that they might need to answer a question. And so oftentimes it was about trying to get them to slow down and actually look for, maybe read the questions ahead of time and look for the answer in the material that they were reading.
Could you tell if it helped him?
Oh, I have no doubt it helped him, yes.
And why do you say that?
Because he could be successful, whereas if he was left to complete the assignment on his own, not just him, but a lot of students would rush through it and not do as well.
How long was Tanner in your content mastery classes?
I feel probably throughout his high school career.
When he was in your classroom, how did he behave?
Typically the way you should. But I do recall on occasions there might be times that he had to be redirected.
What do you mean by redirected?
Well, where we might have to say, you need to be on task, or, you need to act appropriately. You need to, again, make good choices, think about what you're doing, what you're saying.
Were there ever any instances where he failed to act appropriately?
Yes, but typically with him, once he was redirected once or twice, he did what he was expected to do.
Did you find that he was easy to redirect,
Usually, yes.
but not always?
Not always.
Is that typical for a teenage boy?
Well, yeah, I would say so.
Now, Marie, you had the opportunity to watch Tanner throughout his 4 years of high school. I want to talk to you about his ability to reason through things. How would you describe Tanner's ability to reason through his problems or problem solve?
He usually could come to a good conclusion given enough time. But I think if he felt pressured to have to make a split-second decision, he didn't always make the best choice. And that's where those redirections would come from.
And if there were no redirections, what would happen?
I'm not sure he would always make the best choice.
How was he in relation to the other students? Was he able to problem solve when issues came up with the other students?
Most of the time, but I think there might have been a few instances where he couldn't. I mean, I feel like, and I'm not sure if it's a part of this record or not, but I know that he did get into some trouble, at the high school.
Based upon your observations of Tanner, do you feel that his emotions would ever affect his ability to reason?
Yes.
And why do you say that?
Because I think if he got over angry or maybe felt like justice wasn't being served to a peer, more so a peer than maybe even himself, that he might act in a way that wasn't, what he would do otherwise.
Did you ever see him act out in that manner?
Yes.
How often did you see that with Tanner?
It was pretty rare. Maybe once or twice in the time that I recall him being while he was at the high school.
In the 4 years that you spent with Tanner, did you ever see him get physically aggressive with anybody?
I know there was an instance that that happened, but I don't believe I saw it. I don't think I witnessed it.
When Tanner would become upset or have these instances that you were talking about, was he able to calm down on his own, or would he need someone else to help him?
He oftentimes needed someone else to help him.
What would that someone do to help calm him down?
Well, sometimes it's about not talking and just providing a safe place to be until he was in the right frame of mind to talk about the circumstances, and maybe then help him frame what a better choice might have been.
Were you ever one of the people that helped calm him down?
I feel like on at least one or two occasions, yes.
Now, Marie, you talked a little bit about disciplinary records and said that you felt that he had at least one incident. In looking at the records, can you tell whether or not, or how many instances there were of fighting or mutual combat?
Looks like there are 2 on this record. A lot of the others are really more about, like code of conduct, which might be dress code or something like that, and not necessarily a physical altercation. I think there's only 2 fighting or mutual combat on here.
Well, let's talk about the fighting and the mutual combat. Can you tell from the records what happened during those altercations?
No.
Can you
because-
tell who started it?
No.
What kind of policy did the school district have at that time regarding any sort of physical contact like that?
Zero tolerance.
So if two people got in a fight and one person was defending himself, would they still be tagged with fighting or mutual combat?
Yes.
And from these records, can you tell whether or not Tanner was acting in self-defense in those cases?
No, ma'am.
Can you tell if he was acting in defense of a third person in those cases?
No, ma'am.
Just if there's any sort of contact, that's what it's labeled as?
Yes.
And it doesn't matter who starts it?
No.
You mentioned the code of conduct violations. Let's talk about that for a moment. You had mentioned that Tanner had several code of conduct violations on his record. For what can a student get a code of conduct violation?
Well, it could be dress code. At that time, it could have been that they came to school and needed to shave and refused to shave, and then we had to, make them shave. I can't remember if he was under our ID policy or not, but it could have simply been that he didn't have his ID on, if that was required.
So when we're talking about code of conduct violations, we're not talking about any sort of violence, are we?
Typically not, no. That's going to be more the fighting and mutual combat.
In looking back on Tanner and the time that you spent with him, do you have any memory of him ever being a serious disciplinary problem?
No, ma'am.
Did you also have the opportunity to watch him as he interacted with his peers?
Yes, even in contact mastery or the learning lab, yes, they interacted.
And so how often would you get the chance to watch him with his peers?
On any average week, probably once or twice a day.
Based upon your observations of these interactions, what do they look like?
Typical interactions, like you would think with any other student. They just had conversations and, laughed and cut up. I.e. the reason why I said sometimes they had to be redirected.
Was he accepted, or could you tell if he was accepted by the people in that group?
Judge, I'll object as a speculation, as with other people.
I'll let her answer it.
And again, based upon your observations, was Tanner accepted by those peers, or did he seem to be rejected and ostracized?
Most of the time, I think he was accepted. I think there were probably some instances where he was rejected.
Now, based upon your observations of Tanner in the content mastery class versus your observations of him outside of the class, in which group did he appear to be more comfortable?
Are you asking me if I feel like he was more comfortable with peers that were also under special education, or with
That's
all
where I was
peers?
headed.
Okay. He probably was more comfortable with those that were under the special ed umbrella, but he also had friends that were not.
Now, did you ever see any instances where Tanner had difficulty fitting in, or he was teased, or, I hate to use the word bullied, but, kind of mistreated by other students?
Well, I think there were probably times in the hallways in the mall area, the way Azle High School set up, maybe in the cafeteria, where he wasn't always treated as he should. And a lot of times we would not intervene unless it escalated to a point that we felt like we needed to, because they have to learn how to manage those relationships.
You talked about Tanner being in the content mastery, and you talked about having him for 4 years. Did Tanner ultimately graduate from high school?
Yes.
Based upon your observations and your interventions with him, could you tell whether graduating from high school was an easy task for Tanner?
I don't think it was an easy task, no.
Why do you say that?
Well, I mean, because, I mean, an average kid struggles, but I think a student under the special ed umbrella struggles more because it's hard for us to level the playing field and make sure that they have the accommodations that they need to be successful.
When a student graduates from high school and they've been in these classes such as, you know, having an inclusion specialist or having special education programs or being able to go to content mastery, is that the sort of thing that follows them when they graduate?
No, ma'am. A lot of people don't know this, but special education ends when a student graduates. And they're expected to acclimate and fit in and, you know, just move along through society without accommodations that they've had for, I mean, for, in his case, more than 4 years.
So looking back at everything, was Tanner more able to complete his tasks when in a structured environment?
Absolutely.
Was he more able to be redirected while in a structured environment?
Absolutely.
Or was he able to overcome the emotional disturbance label that he was given?
I think so, for the most part.
The last thing I wanted to ask you about, Marie, is you had said that you thought Tanner was a good kid. Why did you think he was a good kid?
He was always pleasant to interact with. Not all the students that came to Content Mastery were. Some of them were pretty much forced to come maybe by the teacher. But he always came willingly and typically, like I said, would accept the redirection and complete the tasks that he was sent there for.
I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
Cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Marie, it sounds like to me, and by the way, my name is James Stanton. I'm the district attorney for Wise County.
Nice to meet you.
I saw you sitting back there. I didn't have a chance to introduce myself to you. So good to have you here today. I'm going to go over a couple of things with you. It sounds like at Azle ISD that there were a lot of programs out there for all the students.
Yes, sir.
To help them with certain subjects. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And we talked a lot about the content mastery, but it sounds like to me there was a bunch of kids, whether they were in special education or not, there was a lot of kids that were in content mastery.
I would reiterate that is true. They could come, but the majority of the students that came were 504 or special ed students.
Right. That had trouble with a certain subject or needed a little extra help.
Yes, sir.
So in addition to what they were getting with their programs in the school, whether it's a 504 or special ed, they had you and people like you that were helping them additionally.
Yes.
With these types of classes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so in this particular case, did you work in the high school the whole time, or were you in different places?
During his time, I was only at the high school.
Only at the high school. Okay. And now, I'm listening to your answers here. Do you feel like you have a pretty specific memory of the defendant, Mr. Horner, in this case?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Because it's been a couple of years.
Mm-hmm. Been a few.
So let's talk about that a little bit. I think you referred to him as, it sounds like when he was attending your classes and things, he was able to listen and learn like the rest of the kids. Is that right?
For the most part, yes, sir.
I think we talked a little bit about him being redirected, but I'm going to guess he probably wasn't the only kid in there that needed redirection.
No.
Okay. And that was, it seems like to me from what you're saying is that probably most of the kids in there may have needed a little redirection.
Yes, sir.
Or maybe a little assistance with their focus.
Yes.
Okay. Now, when you're talking about that and he's in there, you don't have any specific instances of him having any inability to interact with the other kids in that group setting, do you?
Well, I was actually thinking about that this morning and even last night. I recall at least one incident where not just myself, but one of the paraprofessionals in the room, and oftentimes, I mean, it didn't matter who the kid was. We would say, "Hey, look at me. Is that the right choice? Is that what you should be doing?" And like I said, my colleague had to do it as well. But usually he would calm down and take the redirection and move on.
All right. Now, you talked about him in the group setting, and it seemed like you had a pretty specific memory of him interacting with his peers, mostly accepted by his peers, and even I think you said he had friends in that group. Is that right?
Yes.
Kind of like any other kid.
Yes, sir.
Now, I won't get into this too much. We talked about incidences of fighting or conduct and the whole zero tolerance. Ms. Anderson asked you about defending people and other things, but what it also doesn't say is whether or not somebody actually did start it and was assaulting someone else.
Yes. Yeah. The record is very vague.
Right. So, and it sounds like to me you had quite a bit of interaction over a 4-year period with Mr. Horner. Is that right?
Yes.
And we talked about graduating high school. You said that some kids struggle with high school regardless.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody's going to be at the top of the class.
No.
But based on your memory and your records, Mr. Horner graduated normally with the rest of his class.
Yes, sir.
Now, at some point, you'll agree with me that your training and your help for the particular student is going to go away because they're 19, 20, 22, 23 years old, right?
Well, special education technically in the state of Texas ends when a student turns 21.
Okay, thank you. But regardless, you know, people are going to grow up, right? And at some point, they're responsible for their own actions, right?
Yes.
The school can't just be responsible for them when they're 30.
No.
Now, try to make sure I cover all this here. And I didn't use your name. I referred to you as ma'am. Is that okay?
That's perfectly fine.
Okay. I'm a little old school, so. In any of these instances that you're talking about here that specifically deal with the defendant, whether it's redirection or helping him make the right decision and things like that, you talked about several of those you remembered. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And you said with all of those, you were able, even through high school, to get him redirected and get him back on task, so on and so forth. Is that
Yes,
right?
sir.
Okay. You didn't note any instances in there where you were unable to do that?
No, but if, again, I'm going to go back to the code of his disciplinary record. There must have been at least 2 incidences where redirection didn't work because, he has a violation of fighting in mutual combat.
Okay. That's what it's wrong.
Redirect.
Just briefly, Your Honor. Mary, with regards to the disciplinary record, have you had the opportunity to look at the disciplinary records of students in Azle ISD throughout your career?
I can't say throughout my career, but in the role that I had after I left the high school, I saw many, and so yes, ma'am.
And how did Tanner's compare to those?
Well, his was pretty short in comparison to some that I've seen.
The state asked you about graduating with all of the other kids. In order, while Tanner was in high school, did he have accommodations?
Yes.
And were those, tell the jury whether you feel he would have been successful in graduating without those accommodations.
No, ma'am. I don't think he would have been successful without them.
So the only reason he graduated was because of the interventions of you and your team?
Well, and his own tenacity, yes.
Tell me about his tenacity.
He worked hard to achieve.
May I have a moment, Your Honor?
Yes, ma'am.
Nothing further. Thank you, Marie.
Mr. Stegman,
Nothing further on.
may this witness be kindly excused.
No objections.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.